What is up, everybody? A2 Angler here. Today we're going to be just practicing. I've been learning a lot about audio equipment, about editing, and about the different skills that you need to have in order to be successful on YouTube. So today we're going to take a look at a lake. I'm going to break it down for you, and we'll just see what happens. You're on this journey with me. So I'm going to show you a little bit of the magic behind the scenes about how I attack a lake. We're going to take a look at a lake that's not on the schedule for topwater because this is just a test, and I really just want to see what I can do with all the skills I put together. So let's get to it. Intro plays now. All right, everybody, welcome back. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications as we build the channel and as we build what I'm trying to do. That will be extremely important to help support me so that I know what I'm doing right and I know what I'm doing wrong. Everybody has to start somewhere, right? All right, so let's get into this. So the lake I chose to look at is notorious. It has been on the Huron schedule, but it's notorious for being a difficult lake. So let's take a look at Whitmore Lake. Whitmore Lake was the first lake I ever fished for topwater. It was pretty intimidating to me at the time, and I wasn't sure what I was getting into. Later in the season, I guess I should say the first time I went out, I zeroed real good. I was in Pelican Catch 100, and I basically stayed up on the north side of the lake because I didn't want to go too far. There were a lot of boaters. It was a lake I'd never been on such large water before. For me at the time, that was a huge lake, so I just wasn't sure what to do. Now, that was my first tournament on the lake, as I went 50 yards and stayed there. So throughout the season, I fished a lot of different lakes. I learned a lot about the lakes around Southeast Michigan. I even got into some larger water. I was able to come back later in the season on Whitmore Lake and win a topwater 3-hour shootout there. And I'll kind of walk you through what I learned throughout the season and how I attack the lakes. So let's take a look. Here we have Whitmore Lake. Now that I have fished more lakes, it's a smaller lake in my opinion. There's not much to it. I've definitely been on larger lakes in the Huron division and in the Genesee division. But for the most part, in Southeast Michigan, I've learned a lot of these lakes are just big bowls of sand with some grass in them. And knowing that has really changed the way I approach a lake because my home waters is just different. I'm more on the river side of things, and it was tough for me to come from the river side of things into these large circles of bodies of water with not much current. So let's get into it. All right. Now, before you even start, you have to know yourself as an angler. What do you like to do? Do you like to run shallow? Do you like to cover a lot of water? Do you like to camp out on a ledge and find a school? Maybe you have found something in pre-fishing, or you like to go deep. All of that comes into play when you're looking at a lake. For example, on Whitmore Lake, you can see there is certain sides of the lake that are 1 to 7 feet deep, which I would consider shallow. There's a couple flats here in Whitmore Lake. I also see this channel that runs straight through the lake and gets to about 40 feet. So, and up towards the northeast end, you've got 85-foot hole. So that's interesting. One, because there's deep water here, and for me, it's deep water on a ledge that's also close to the bank, which tells me that this side of the lake might be good for a little bit of both. To confirm that, let's jump over to Google Earth. Now, if you don't have a Google Earth subscription, I've heard you need a subscription. I don't know if you can download this for free, but this is such a powerful tool in terms of breaking down lakes and learning about how to attack them. So let's put in here Whitmore Lake. Spelled it wrong. And we'll search it. All right. And what this is going to do is going to take us right to it. Hopefully. A lot of times I find lakes that are called the same thing around Michigan, and it's very hard to find your lake, your target lake. So let's zoom in a little bit. Here's Whitmore Lake. Now, one of the things I like to do is make sure that my depth chart, where I have these flats and this channel, look accurate. So I come back, I see the flats, right? Your shallower spaces will be lighter sometimes, most of the time, and I see that channel right in here. So that tells me that I'm working with a map that is, for the most part, accurate. I also see this point, this long sloping point here. It's really long, 6 foot, and then it kind of like drops off kind of gradually, and it has a pretty sharp drop off on the north side. I see that right there as well. So that's good. Really good. So the first thing that I noticed on this lake for myself is I started to learn that I wanted to have the option. I want the option to go shallow. I want the option to go deep. And I want the option to do that in as little time as possible. So even though the south side of this lake has this really nice looking hole, a nice little pocket, it's got some of these points here, a little ledge here. I have to go all the way across the lake in order to get there. Now, some people will say that's worth the haul to get over there in a kayak. But for me, I want to get fishing as fast as I can. And I also want to be able to use my fish finder in the first half hour. You know, you're not allowed to fish once you launch, but you can look for them, right? So you can use some of that time to get to a spot and just check to see if anything's there using your fish finder. And I might make a video on how to do that, what I look for on the fish finder once I figure out how to do that. So go back to your launch, right? Your launch is near some of this deeper water, this awesome ledge, and a really nice point. Okay? And if none of this is holding fish, you always have the option to go a little further south, hit these flats, or this channel swing, which just looks so tasty, as well as this side as well. Now, in pre-fishing, I learned this is a sandbar, and a lot of people like to hang out and party in the sandbars. So it's not as fun fishing next to those people, especially if they're like swimming around and making a bunch of noise. So I would say that this sandbar here is just not for me. If you want to fish this ledge, go for it. But it's just not for me. Which leaves this side of the lake. So let's go over to our Google Earth side of things. And we're going to take a look at this lake and try to figure out where to start. Now, one of the tools in Google Earth that I love is the ability to look at photos from space across time. And I can toggle back in time and look at this lake at different periods of time. And what I'm looking for is July. And the reason I'm looking for July or the summertime is because that is when people put out their docks or have their docks out. I like dock fishing. Dock fishing is a lot of fun. you can see the depth change in the water here. And if I go forward, you can see this is taken January, February, March. Nobody has their dock out. But you can see some of the channels where the docks were. Go back to the summer. You can see those docks there again. This will dictate a lot of things. If you can find a permanent dock, like let's go up here to the north side and see if any of these docks are permanent. They're not. So you don't have really any permanent structure in the lake. And that's going to dictate fish movement as well. Fish like to hold up on structure. We know this. And I truly think that some structure fish remember and know very well. So let's go take a look at this side of the lake. Here's the docks. Now, check this out. On this side of the lake, you got a couple docks here in this little curve, this little cut, that don't seem to move across the year. That tells me there's permanent structure there. These docks might be worth hitting, maybe right off the go, or maybe coming back, because they're right next to the boat ramp. So you save that. You say, okay, here's a spot. This could be a spot to start. It could be a spot to end. It could be your go-to spot when things are going bad. All right? Now, when I ran and won it in 2020, right? I think it was 2020 that I won the Whitmore Lake. What I did is I started out, I took off from the boat launch. I started heading east and saw lots of guys heading over to this ledge here. And I just decided I don't want to be fishing near a lot of people. For me, that's just not helpful. Maybe they're on something, maybe they know something, but then that really messes with my head. So what I decided to do is really attack this ledge, or this point, this underwater point, and the channel swing. This to me was the most productive area that I could think of for the day. I knew I'm going against a lot of guys who like to run shallow, a lot of guys who like to cover water, hit docks. But I knew to myself that these docks are not always there, and so fish won't rely on them as much. I always look for those permanent docks because fish will know they're there all the time. Sometimes they're there in the winter, and that's really helpful. So I eliminated for myself a lot of this area. Now, that's not to say fish aren't there. Fish might be there. But for me, if it's not a permanent dock, it's not permanent structure, this point, this underwater point, is always going to be there for the most part, right? So this is a more reliable piece of structure for me. So what I did is I came in here and I started just where that party boat scene ends and started working my way back up this way on the ledge here on the drop off. And I was fishing the drop off and started chucking up. I was sitting on the drop off and throwing across the shallow point. And then the other thing I did is I pulled off the drop to about 26 foot and started throwing across this long sloping point here and worked my way around to this ledge, this drop off. I didn't have any luck in the shallows. Anyway, I started working on this ledge, and this is where I started to find them. Right here. Right here was this money spot. I caught three fish, 2 scoreable on this ledge right here from 26 to 4 foot. I mean, it's such a tight drop off, and they were smacking anything that I was throwing up into about 3, pulling it off at a diagonal, and they were just, when they hit it, they were eating it real good. So, and then at the end of the night, I went into this little hole area and checked those docks, and there was nothing there. And that was all she wrote. You only have 3 hours. So you know, when you're looking at lakes, just remember you've got time against you. Look for that permanent structure. Look for vegetation. You also have to consider all of the weather factors, which I didn't go into today. Today was really just about practicing a lake breakdown and talking to you guys about just some of the stuff that I see. My first tournament, I ran over to the east and I checked this. I was in the hole and I was checking that ledge there. But again, I think I zeroed out there because when you look at that on a map from space, there's just so little there. Let's try to find one in the middle of summer. You know, you got a lot of boat traffic. There's summer. There's just not much there. There's not much vegetation there. These docks are not permanent. So it just, yeah, they'll pull up in the docks, but it just wasn't it didn't work for me. So that's how I attacked Whitmore Lake. That's what happened. And hopefully you enjoyed listening to me ramble. Again, this was just for practice, but thank you so much. Hopefully I get a lot better at this. And once I look back and I edit it, you know, these will start to get really cool. So hope all is well. Hope everybody's staying safe. We'll see you in the next video. Llama out.